Today, we're happy to start off with Strulov-Shlain, who is going to talk about sophisticated consumers.
Thank you. Thank you for having me in the NBER meeting on the persistent floating meeting controls. How many of us had subscriptions that we stopped using and kept paying, right, for a very long time? No, even show of hands, nice. How many of us, right, stopped subscribing to such promotional offers because we are aware of that risk, right? Okay, all the smart people. Okay, so this is what we're going to talk about today, okay? We're going to talk about inertia and if consumers expect and perceive that they will be inert in the future. Wait, let me hide it. Here we go. Oh. 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 Check. Okay. So, consumers' inertia is well known. Okay, and I want to start by clarifying what we mean by inertia. Okay, so inertia is the behavior, it's a behavioral tendency to stay in the same state. Okay, so your probability of being in state X, if you were in state X in time t-1, conditional on preferences, is greater than the probability of us observing you in state X unconditionally. And for example, we're going to talk about subscriptions today. So if your subscription renews, you keep that subscription. But if you're not subscribed, you will not sign up now, even if it's frictionless, for the same subscription under the same terms. Okay, so that will be inertia. Now, what causes inertia can be quite varied. So we don't want to think of preferences as causing inertia. We don't want to think, okay, some people like the newspaper and they subscribe, others do not. We do want to think about other things. So one thing is habit formation or learning that once you are subscribed, you actually like the subscription and you want to stay enrolled because you learn to enjoy it. Another thing is switching costs, which is not about changing your preferences. It's actually costly to cancel a subscription. You need to call customer service. It has to be between 11:08 and 11 and 17 minutes mountain time, and you never catch the agent, right? And the last thing, which is somewhat different, is the idea of underlying inaction. So that's the idea that for whatever reason, your life is complicated, you forget to act. And it's not, the difference is this, unlike switching cost, is not driven by some cost benefit analysis. This is, the timer isn't running, by the way. This is just this innate, you forget, okay? So we're gonna think about these as well. So inertia awareness matters, okay? So if this is not by changing preferences, if it's switching costs or inaction, inert consumers who are still subscribed to something they do not like are worse off. And this paper, what we're going to do differently than the many papers there are on inertia, we are going to consider not just the takers, not just the inert subscribers, but the entire population, including this extensive margin of people who might not join. So first question we're going to ask is, are consumers inert? And the answer is yes. We're going to find that about 70% of the sample in the population would fail to cancel a subscription they do not like. How many of them, though, are aware of their future inertial tendencies? The number is quite high. So we have a lower bound of about 58% of the inert being aware of that inertia and will only take a subscription they do not like if they are balancing the risk of staying subscribed for longer. And that has a lot of implication on consumer behavior and for the firm, because what will happen is that sophisticates will avoid taking a contract they wouldn't like. And that makes exploiting inertia not as beneficial to the firm as it might seem, and not as harmful to consumers in the aggregate as it might seem if we only condition on takers. So the first challenge in studying this question is we need to have the entire population, not just takers. And the literature by and large focuses on takers. And for good reasons, because that usually the data, also the data that companies have is their existing subscribers. So whether it's having a gym membership or being on a health insurance plan or many people in the audience or who were in the audience yesterday as well are on this list. We have kind of this selected sample, and there's a consistent finding that consumers are very unlikely to switch and are very inert. Okay, so to overcome this challenge, we're going to look at the entire sample and we're going to randomize how inertial something is across consumers. The second thing is that we need variation in the future inertial relevance of a contract. Okay, not in the current how inert relevant it is, but in the future how it affects. And this is more rare to find. You can see it in some of the behavioral literature on commitment devices that studies slightly a different question, but it's rare to find, and we're going to do that with a field experiment. So what we're going to do, we're going to randomize promotional offers for a newspaper subscription between readers, and we're going to vary the degree of inertial relevance of the contract. Basically, some people will have a promotional offer where the subscription ends after the promo period, and some people will have a promotional offer that renews to a full-term subscription. Okay, and we have about 2 million newspaper readers who are potential subscribers, and we're going to observe their entire subscription behavior over 2 years of the takers and the non-takers, and we're going to observe their usage at least in the few weeks surrounding the experiment. Okay, so to kind of explain exactly what we think about, because when people think about inertia, people think of different things. Here's a toy model. We have a full model in the paper that we'll also use for the estimation. But let's think of a 2-period subscription. Okay, first period is free, second period is for some price P. Now let's start with assuming that the contract auto-cancel. What does auto-cancel mean here? After the first period, the contract ends, and if you want to renew the terms, it's like an option value. The terms are set, the price for the second period is going to be P, and let's assume it's frictionless and easy to renew. Okay, so let's say a reader has some value V, and there is some subscription cost CS due to the price of giving your credit card details to the service, your email, you're going to get bombarded, etc. It's not exactly free. Okay, so the net value is V minus CS. If you take the contract and decide to renew, so it's V minus CS plus delta V minus P, so you're going to pay a higher price in the future. Now, what happens if the contract auto-renews? Well, now, if you value the subscription but less than the price of the second period, you need to cancel in the second period. We assume 2 things need to happen in order to cancel. First, you need to pay some unsubscription cost, CU, okay, which can be hassle costs of calling the customer service or finding where the cancel button is, etc., etc. And you need to act with a probability 1 minus phi. That's our phi is going to be our parameter of inaction. That's the innate probability of not taking an action you wish to take, not doing the cost-benefit analysis. In that case, now the utility is minus CS plus V plus 1 minus phi. That's the chance of actually acting and canceling, paying minus CU plus phi delta V minus P. Okay, very simple. So this clarifies that the sources of inertia that we're thinking of are this unsubscription cost, CU, and phi, this parameter of inaction. We don't have habit formation here. I will touch on it later because we don't find much support for it in our setting. So it just simplifies things for now. Okay, so now on the extensive margin, if you're offered an auto-cancel subscription, the subscribing decision is very simple. You just see if the net value is positive. If you are offered auto-renew and your value is high enough that you wish to have to be a long-run subscriber, then if the net present value of that is positive, you'll stay. But now, if you think that you might not want to be a long-run subscriber, just a short run, then what matters is not the cost and the inaction, it's the perceived cost and the perceived inaction. Okay, so we designate those with the little tildes above. So it's the perceived future cost of unsubscription, and it's the perceived future chance of inaction that will drive this take-up behavior. And we assume that people know their discount factor, which is also relevant here. Okay, so that motivates our experimental design. To answer inertia, the basic prediction is that an auto-renewing product will lead subscribers to be subscribed for longer. So what we're going to do, we're going to randomize the inertia relevance if an offered contract is auto-renewing or auto-canceling, and we're going to measure subscriptions over 2 years. To measure perceived inertia, we're going to look at the take-up margin, and because preferences are confound, we're going to randomize, basically, between readers. We get the same distribution. We also have measures of the baseline pre-experimental behavior on the newspapers, which gives us a good predictive power of value heterogeneity. We also vary, and I will not touch on it because of time, prices and the duration to get at habit formation and to quantify everything we do here later on. Okay, so the setting is a premium European daily newspaper, which I cannot name, but think of general newspaper similar to the New York Times or the Washington Post or the Guardian. And it has a strict paywall. So if a reader hits the paywall, they must subscribe to read the content. The regular subscription is 35 euros per month. Okay, it's pricey. There are other contracts offered like a daily pass and a student discount and things like that, but that's kind of the full subscription offer. And on the website, some of the content is available, it's free. The homepage, some AP news, things like that. Excuse me. Some of it is metered, so there's a quota of 10 papers per week, and then you hit the paywall. And some of it is always behind the paywall. Okay. What happens is once a reader during the experimental period, once a reader hits the paywall, they enter our experiment. Okay. Once they enter the experiment, they see one of 8 offers. It's a 2x2x2 design. So the price of the promo period is going to be either for free or 99 euro cents. The duration of the promo period is going to be 2 or 4 weeks. And the inertia terms, the contract will either auto-renew to a full paying subscription, monthly, indefinite, or will auto-cancel, and you have the option value of picking up this auto-renewing contract. Importantly, all readers give the credit card details when they sign up, even if it's an auto-canceling free subscription. That's crucial for us. And in one of the treatment arms, wasn't implemented correctly, but we can use it later. The post-promo price terms are identical to all subscribers. So post-promo, it's also some discount. So you get 20 euros a month for the first 2 months, and then it becomes this 35 euros a month until you die. Okay, the data we have is subscriptions data, all the CRM data from April 2018 to April 2020. We see the subscriptions to the experimental subscriptions offered, but also to any newspaper product, those daily passes, print subscriptions, et cetera, So we see all of it. We see the website browsing behavior, so which pages people visited and when, and we have that for 2 weeks before people entered the experiment and 4 weeks after. And we also see which offers popped up on their screen, which is important for us to classify them. And the sample is about 2.1 million readers. Now, when I say reader, I mean a cookie identifier. And we also work a lot trying to merge. If someone subscribed, we can see which cookie tracker is associated with their subscriber ID, and we can try to defragment this data. But if someone never subscribed, we're going to have a bunch of zeros here and there. Okay, that's a limitation that many digital businesses have anyway. Let me jump to the main results. So what you see here on the horizontal axis is time since the promo offer. Okay, 0 is the month or the 2 weeks when the people see the promo. And on the vertical axis is the subscription rate. So if at a certain period, a 0.1 here means it's in percentage points. If at a certain period there are 1,000 offered subscription days, 0.1 is one of those 1,000 is taken. Okay, so most people do not subscribe, basically, as you can imagine. The black line is the baseline of auto cancel. The orange line is the auto renewal arm. And what you see is 3 things, or 2 things here. There is a lower take up during the promo period. So by and large, people predict that auto renewal is worse for them, and they do not take it up at the same magnitude. But after the promo period ends, even though you have a lower subscription rate initially, you have higher subscription rate afterward. And that's clear evidence of inertia. And but you also see this different trends over time that I will touch on shortly. So here I'm just showing you the differences with confidence intervals. It's the same absolute magnitude on the vertical axis. The numbers here reflect the relative percent difference. So we have 28% lower subscription rate during the promo period. This is all intent to treat, right? So it's people taking either the promotional offers or any subscription on the newspaper. And we have 20% higher subscription rate after the promo period ends. Okay, and it actually becomes negative over time. Now let's look at cumulative revenues. Okay, so here now instead of the per period revenue, I'm showing you the revenues so far. Auto renewal is better in the short run for the first 6 to 8 months. And then we have, again, the same negative trend we see in the subscription rate also reflects in revenues. So the per period revenues are lower, the cumulative revenues converge to zero over time. So in the long run, there is no, even though consumers are inert, there are no benefits for it from a revenue perspective. Let's look at the extensive margins. So now instead of looking at subscription rates, let's look at how many people take up and become subscribers at all to anything, even a day. So during the promo period, that's the top panel, we have 24% fewer subscribers, okay? In the full 2 years after the promo ends, we also have 10% fewer subscribers in this entire period. So just being offered an auto renew product apparently pushes some people away from engaging with the business as a whole, okay? Importantly, we do not see that for the other treatment arms. So if we look at the free versus €1 or the 4 weeks versus 2 weeks, those promo offers are better and they bring more subscribers to take up during the promo period. So we have about 9–10% higher take up, and that doesn't roll over to any higher subscription rate in the future. So we get a precise 0 for both of those. And that's also some of the evidence against the habit formation being important here, because people who are entered the platform do not learn to like it more and become long-run subscribers. Okay, so just to take stock on the experiment and the reduced form results, the firm doesn't gain much from offering auto renewal in the long run. Okay, we have fewer consumers take up during the promo period and try the product. We have fewer consumers who subscribe to any contract in the 2 years following. In the medium term, indeed, auto renewal looks better, but in the long run, the benefits decline, and it's different than the price and duration dynamics. So after 2 years, you have the same revenue, fewer subscribers, to the extent that word of mouth matters, that your subscription base matters, that ad revenue, targeted ad revenue matters. It's actually worse in the long run for the newspaper offering auto renewal than auto cancellation. So far I showed you the intent to treat. I didn't impose any structure here. And the clearest evidence of inertia here is that even though we have low subscription take up and subscription rate during the promo period, we still have higher subscription rate post promo. Okay, so it's enough to overcome this reduction. I will now add some structure and assumptions to try to quantify those and interpret these results in light of the model. If you don't like the model, you can stop listening. That's fine, but the evidence for inertia and for predicting inertia is already there in the experimental results. Okay, so first thing is asking about those channels that I mentioned in the beginning. The patterns are inconsistent with habit formation and learning, details in the paper, obviously. So first thing is this long run behavior from the price and duration. They increase promo take up, they don't roll over to higher take up post. So people who take it up don't learn to like it more. Also, we have the usage data. We can look at the behavior of the auto renewals who take, the people who are offered an auto renew and take it, the people who are offered an auto cancel and take one of the promotional contracts. Their usage is the same. Basically, the auto renewal subscribers, even though they're much more likely, 20 times more likely to be subscribed after the promo, the takers, they don't read the paper. Okay, so they're really unless they have some innate preference for being a subscriber, they don't use the paper at all. So it's not about learning and getting some value about it. Here it's somewhat weaker, but the patterns are inconsistent with switching costs. So we have, remember, after the promo, we have the price going up from 20 euros a month to 35. We have no reaction to that price change. And under any model of either stochastic cancellation costs or deterministic cancellation costs, we should expect to see some movement there, and we see basically none. Okay, so it's very surprising, but we just can't find evidence for the switching cost driving it. What is consistent is kind of this innate inaction. And this is very similar to Broad-Goldberg et al., who look at Medicare Part D drugs and find basically that it's not cost-benefit driven, it's just this innate 95% chance of not switching drugs. Okay, so now we want to estimate and quantify those effects. We're going to switch to look at the takers of the experimental contracts. And the first thing we want to say is how many auto-renew subscribers there are due to inertia, okay? And with it, we're going to measure the share of excess subscribers in auto-renewal in time t. We need to add a key assumption here of monotonicity. Basically, what monotonicity means here is that we assume that if a reader is offered an auto-renew contract and takes it, they would have taken an auto-cancel contract if they were offered the auto-cancel contract. Okay, we're seeing if we can relax it a bit, but with that, we can take the moments of how many subscribers among takers there are in AR, how many there are in AC, inflate the AC by a factor and get the excess subscribers. And what we're going to do is we're going to, in the model, we're going to allow for 3 types of inertial consumers. The non-inerts, okay, they don't have unsubscription costs, they don't have inaction, they always act. Okay, you put a reminder, you use a service, whatever. The fully inert, who are kind of the fully naive in the behavioral literature, that they will just stay there forever. And most people will be the partially inert, that they have some chance of inaction in a month. And we're going to identify their shares from the excess auto-renew subscribers. The partial inerts will leave gradually, the fully inerts stay forever, and the non-inerts are those who leave immediately, taking out the partial inerts. This is what the moments look like in the data. So this is how many more excess subscribers there are in AR that would have been subscribed at AC at the same time. So these are people who don't want to be there. We don't need to make any functional form assumption about their value distribution. We just quantify how many excess subscribers there are. And you see this decline. We're fitting a very, very simple model here. We're basically saying there's a chance of inaction every month. It's a constant hazard rate. And the triangles are the fit, and you see that it fits surprisingly well, okay? And then we extend it to infinity. We extend it to the promo period. And this gives us the shares and the partial inertia of those who, of the partial inerts. So the slope here, the hazard rate is 0.72. It means there's a 72% chance of not canceling a subscription you do not want. We have 51% that are non-inert, okay, during period 0. Okay, these are the excess people who leave not due to this partial inertia. And we have very, very few fully inert. So you can, going forward, you can ignore the fully inerts. We don't have any action here. There's no change in the hazard rate due to the price change. And it's a 15 euro per month price change. Okay, so now we want to think about the perceived inertia. So to do that, we're going to add another assumption. We're going to assume orthogonally to your true inertia, you can be either sophisticated or naive. Okay, so sophisticated means that you know your true inertia parameters or your inertia driving parameters. They're your unsubscription cost and your probability of inaction. So phi tilde equals phi, c tilde equals c. Naive, you think you're going to be non-inert. Okay, it's a very simple assumption. And then we're going to estimate the shares of each type in the population. And here the price and duration treatments are actually important to get rid of incidental parameters for this problem. The idea is very simple. We're going to say for each type of, based on your perceived unsubscription costs and perceived inaction parameters, what's the threshold value that will make you indifferent between taking the subscription or not, okay? And then we can find this V bar for each combination of parameters. Since we know what those parameters are, we can then say who will take the auto renewal contract. If you are non-inert, you're going to take it at the same rate as the auto cancel because they're equivalent. That's our monotonicity assumption. If you are naive, you're going to take the auto renewal contract at the same rate as the auto cancel because you think you're going to be non-inert. And then if you're sophisticated and inert, you're only going to take it if taking it balances the risk of inertia that we see here, okay? And that gives us, with one floating parameter that we have to change and check robustness for, that gives us the share of sophisticates in the population. So what we find that 70% in the population are inert, and almost all of them are partially inert. And again, the monthly inaction parameter is 72%, but at least 58% are sophisticated. Okay, so we need at least 58% sophisticates in order to explain this reduction in take-up. And here's an interesting point that if we think about conditioning on takers, which is very common, the picture changes by a lot. Okay, so instead of 58 sophisticated, this is by definition, of course. If we define the sophisticated as those who avoid the subscription, we now go from 58% sophisticates to 6% sophisticates among the inerts. Okay, and if we look at long-run stayers, we're still at 6% sophisticated, and almost all of them are inert because the non-inerts left. Right, so selecting the sample selection here is a first order thing to interpret the shares of naives and the shares of inerts in the population at large. Last point is we're going to ask, connecting it to a lot of the behavioral IO theory papers, there's an argument made for naivete-based discrimination. Right, so if I, as the firm, knows who's naive and who's sophisticated, I'm going to offer the auto renewal contract to the naives. I'm going to offer the auto cancel contract to the sophisticates, and then I capture all. So we can answer that it's just a case study and it's just in our setting, but we can answer that using some heterogeneous treatment effects estimation. So we have the pre-experiment covariates. We can see the usage before. We show that those covariates are useful, so they predict take-up, they predict revenue, they predict treatment effects, but can they predict naivete? So what we do, we don't know the naivete parameters at the individual level, but we can look the same exercise I did before, I can do it on a subpopulation level. So we're saying, try to maximize outcome Y. Here I'm showing you the first month post-subscription, same thing we do for total revenues, total subscribers. And we find the optimal treatment assignment, and then within counterfactual, you would have been assigned to auto renew, you would have been assigned to auto cancel. We can look at the ex post descriptors of these subpopulations, and what we find that ex post, at least given that it's not super deep, so it's given the behavior on the website. If you read politics or culture or sport, those do not predict naivete, basically. The most important thing is they predict, you predict value, and that matters. So that's the final point. So let me conclude. I don't know how, okay, I think I'm on time. What we find in the experiment, auto renewal offer causes lower take-up in the short and long run. Auto renewal offer causes higher revenues in the short to medium run, but we have some subscribers who disengage due to the auto renew offer. And takers are inert, yet do not use the service. Okay, so it doesn't create value, it doesn't create learning and habit formation. Using our model under additional assumptions, we can say that inertia is substantial but heterogeneous. A large share are sophisticated, they are aware of their inertia, and they avoid taking the contract. And conditioning on takers is like eliminating almost all sophisticates and non-inerts from your sample. Now, an important caveat here, We're looking at subscription services, and this is something that we don't have to take. And we're also getting pretty savvy about those things. It might be different if you look at health insurance, or if you have your electricity and gas utility providers where there's only one or two and they are all inertia inducing. You can't escape that. We don't say that a sophisticated will not become inert. We're saying that if they have this margin of response of not taking an inertia inducing contract, they will act on it. Bottom line, the common wisdom of naive inerts should be re-examined, and exploitative contracts, at least in our saying, this is a happy conclusion. Exploitative contracts are not beneficial, not just from a moral perspective, but even from the business perspective, they tend to be worse off. Thank you.